Mesmer's greatsword has a skill called Mirror Blade. How it works is when you cast it, it sends out a projectile that will bounce between enemies and allies and deal less damage the more it bounces. There is a bug related to this skill. The in-game tooltip tells us that it is supposed to deal 15% less damage per bounce, but what is happening is that the game is applying that minus 15% to the first clean hit, which did not bounce yet, resulting in an overall 17.6% damage loss compared to what it should be. If we use the in-game tooltip for the maximum damage, we should be getting about 11.5k average on the first hit. But in reality, we're only getting about 9.6k. If GS2 worked correctly, the coefficient of the first hit should be 1, followed by 0.72 for the second hit, 0.52 for the third hit, and 0.38 for the fourth. But in-game right now, the first hit starts at the 0.85 coef, dropping the following hits to 0.61, 0.44, and 0.32 respectively, which is where the 17.6% damage loss comes from. Quick note, you will only have a fourth hit if you have the trait Bountiful Blades in Domination traded. There is a certain bug that affects shatters for Mesmers, and specifically F1. It has been around for at least since Arc DPS exists, as long as I can confirm, but has not been really usable up until the new Chronomancer Shatter rework in July 2020. Simply put, the bug occurs when you shatter 2 or 3 clones with your F1 split second and rapidly follow it with any other shatters. Your F1 will magically deal more damage for no apparent reasons. Here is a normal 3-clone F1 with no other shatters following it, and something of note is that all the hits of the shatters will use the same weapon RNG, so all of the hits should roll the same damage. The reason the last 4 hits are lower is because I have Time Catches Up traded, which will boost the damage of my shatters by 10%, but it doesn't apply to the second hit. Here is an example of a bugged F1's damage. First, you can see that the second hit of the shatters dealt more damage than the first hit, even though they're supposed to deal less due to not having TCO applied to them. And you can clearly see that the damage of the shatters goes up for no reason right after my rewinder. How this bug works is somewhat complicated. First, we need to understand that F1's damage per clone goes down the more clones you have. That means that a 1-clone F1's damage will be higher than a 3-clone F1's clone, but the 3-clone F1 will deal more overall damage due to having higher hits. Whenever you shatter, the game will apply a buff to the player, ranging anywhere from 10,369 to 10,371, and each of those values are linked to the amount of clones shattered. 10,369 being a 0 or 1 clone shatter, 10,370 being 2 clones, and 10,371 being 3 clones. Whenever you shatter 3 clone F1, the game would apply to you 10,371 to remember that you 3 clone shattered. But if you shatter anywhere after F1, it will replace the current buff you have with a new one of the new shatter. The game will then use this new value to calculate F1's damage, and the game will think you simply shattered 0 or 1 clone and applied the higher damage per clone rate to all of your clones. This bug also works in PvP and is easier to pull off if your clones are ranged to the target, and it also works for Mirage and Core, not just Chronomancer.